you're not.
Lincoln, just press that button and this B button, and then power it off, you're good to go.
B button
So
and
you're
what?
live on TV and you're live stream.
B button and what?
Lincoln.
Green flasher thing,
Green
you see it?
on the little
And
gray
then
box.
and then that switch up there, you can power it off.
How do these mics get activated?
Huh?
The mics get activated. You have to push in order to get to be
The
heard.
mic should be live once that gets on.
Testing, testing.
Yeah, but if they all got green lights on, which they do,
Yeah.
you're
So
good.
is it on?
Testing,
on.
testing, okay.
You're on TV, you're like. I think I am. All right?
All right, Mark, we'll call you in about 5 minutes.
You can
We need you again.
see, there's always a delay. on
Stay
cable,
close.
so if you're watching TV,
Can you just
okay?
stay?
So if you're watching the TV, that screen, this is what's going out the cable. So you'll always see a few minute delay, and this is what's actually in here.
So we're on.
You're live
We're
streaming.
live.
Yep. Yeah, as long as that screen and, all right. So all the people hear me talking now. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colonel?
Do you have one of the?
How are you, Steve?
Yes, I do. Yeah, thank you.
I didn't bring it.
What's happening today?
Hello.
Are you still an active firefighter?
All right, thank you.
You hate being retired, so you'll find it. Yeah, you're way too young.
Where are you gonna put Alex?
Either
Put
side
him
of us,
next
I
to,
guess.
Mike, who's left to come?
Yeah, right.
Joe.
Is-
There's something.
Oh, is he FaceTiming?
He's not back from Florida. He's not back from Florida.
I mean, he can watch it online if he wants.
It's not like I was looking forward to this planet for all that. I'm sorry.
Almost a good.
Just about a year ago.
Got a couple big, huge limbs of pines in between the Browskis and ours, wind up on the roof on the
What?
night of the
They
seventh.
handle it? Are you medicated or you have to have surgery?
Yeah? Oh, maybe Joe.
I'm waiting for the lawyer to come in.
Yeah, I just told him he wanted
I think Jim is too.
It's a nice
Jim could be too. Jim's watching.
But I think, you know, we actually, these skaters, we got five, damages of the roof, gotta replace the
She
roof.
wasn't feeling great. I think
Feel
the
great?
place in nurse could like,
These things are so beautiful.
and she goes,
This is the wastewater.
It's a blessing in disguise. Should've
Thank
taken
you.
it down when we moved here 50 years ago.
so his wife like,
They're junk.
We got you front and center, Alex. Where you going?
Every planter, you know, they always like to have green right away. You know?
we're pretty good at this, you know. You
Down there and I had one later.
Okay.
And he says, a lot of people, like,
Were you?
That's okay. Support, right.
yeah, you get a little, and you get over it, you know? Never know. But they went in, they cleaned them up, and I'm like, how do you feel? He's like, I don't feel bad. Yeah, right. I would've never thought. That's what I thought. I never thought I would. Okay. Yeah, you feeling better? He had the surgery and everything, he had like, pretty good blockage. I mean, so. Nothing easier if I felt like I had, one foot in the grave and all of a sudden I feel better. Sure. Never felt that.
Understand?
Yeah, whatever, so we'll see something.
Hey, Alex.
How are you?
Water and
Good.
sewer industry for you, there you go. You don't wanna get up at night, so yeah. Right together. Someone's gotta do it, but. You know what, I wouldn't.
Oh, I got your sweatshirt.
It's you get up and make any difference. And it's not, it's not counting, it's not ever. Right, exactly. Again, it's gotta be on calls. Yeah, he'll be on calls sometimes, but it's not, somebody will meter blew out or something, and they say, one guy can hit it. I would be good with that, you know?
Well, I try not to be too boring. I never.
3 days.
Yeah.
You actually have a flag.
I'm sleeping like.
We have a flag so we can do the pledge of allegiance.
Thank you.
I had a good run, 42 years between the volunteers.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Where'd you spend most of your time, in water? Water?
Yeah,
Is that
I
right?
started in Britain, left there to go to Waterbury, did 25 there, retired.
That's right.
I was 48 when I retired. I went to Wellsman.
I remember you told me that, that's where I vacation was.
Yeah. Did 7 or 8 months up there. Yeah, so I was on the hiring list for Torrington.
Beautiful spot there.
Awesome. I tell you what, we got an offer on a house that, I mean, 3/4 of a mile from the ocean, they were good to go.
What road were you gonna be on?
It was on,
In
Wells Highlands.
In Wells, okay.
Wells Highlands, yeah. There was like 5 or 6 houses on the right-hand side. Come out of the house, stand on the road, and cross the road.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just, it was too boring.
Yeah.
Because I only took about 3 years, and I said to my wife,
Can't do this.
he was off the charts, sitting in the farmhouse, and I was working a 48-hour shift, and I said, nothing's happening up here.
In 48 hours.
And it's crazy busy.
Yeah, right.
Because it goes from 10,000 people to that region, all
Welcome, we're gonna open the meeting now. This is a meeting concerning the rate increases for the sewer department. Has nothing to do with the water department. They're two separate entities. I'm gonna pass it off to Bill Hester. He's got a few comments to make before we go into the proposed rate increase, after which we'll open it up to public comments and questions.
Thank you, John. So I thought it would be good that we sort of introduced ourselves. I have a quick little bio of everybody. I'm actually pretty impressed by some of these people up here on their skills and their knowledge. So I think it'd be well worth sharing with everybody. We have John Mazzacati here to my left. John's been on the commission for well over 20 years. He's been 4 years as the chairman. He also served on the zoning board of appeals. The last 7 years, John's worked for the Farmington Display, where he was a floor supervisor. He'd worked in woodworking manufacturing, and he oversaw shipping, receiving. He assisted in design reports and incorporated technique and cost evaluations. Then over here, everybody must know George Clausen. He's been on the water and sewer for the last 4 years. He served 6 years on the Board of Selectmen, 12 years on planning and zoning, and the last 2 years he's been the chairman of it. He formed his own corporation as a general contractor, SOC Construction, where he's constructed buildings in 4 out of the 6 New England states. He's done financials, sales, municipal applications, presentations, project management, billings, receivable tax return preparations. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but George is also a Air Force fighter pilot, retired with a rank of lieutenant colonel. So George, we thank you for your service. Joe Lumlin is not here, but I'll still talk about him anyway. Joe's been on the water sewer for 4 years. He's also the treasurer of the Housing Authority. He's been 28 years with the street department. In 2014, he did a little stint as a temporary director until Jimmy Rollins came on. Joe has extensive knowledge of the town infrastructure, both the water system and the drainage, and he used to work weekends at the treatment plant. And then over here to my left, that is Mike Farrell. Mike is new to the board. He just came on last June. Mike actually has 42 years in the fire service, 33 years as a volunteer in Avon, 25 years in Waterbury, 7 more years in Torrington, and he just retired this past July. Mike served 4 terms, which is 12 years on the Avon WPCA. The last 5 years, he was the chairman. Avon doesn't have a treatment plant. So Mike was part of 3 IMAs, which is inter-municipal agreement. So he knows a lot about that with Simsbury, Farmington, and Canton. And Mike, thank you for your service as a fireman. And here comes the hard part. And I am Bill Hester. I've been on the commission for 4 years. I'm the superintendent of the Norfolk Sewer District. The last 4, I've been in charge up there. Norfolk has the 2nd oldest sewer system in the state of Connecticut, by the way. I'm also a wastewater operator, class 4, which is what Alex is to my right, and I'll get to him in a minute. through the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Right now, I'm assisting and overseeing a $4 million relining project up in Norfolk. We're doing the entire collection system. We've done 42 manholes, totally rehab, brand new ones in, out, all part of that. I'm also a member of the Connecticut Water Pollution Abatement Association, the Connecticut Association of Water Pollution Control Authorities, which this May is going to combine to be called the Connecticut Water Environment Association. And I'm also a member of the Atlantic States Rural Water and Wastewater Association. And I believe, Marty, are you still the president of that?
I am.
And Marty is the president of the Atlantic States. So then we have Alex Combs here to my right. Alex has been 23 plus years at the plant. He's a Class 4 operator with the DEP. He took over for Rinchi Kep when he retired. And then over there to my left is Marty Cormier. He's been with the town for 9 years, and 6 years he's the superintendent of the distribution and collection system. So this is a little part that I'd like to, I titled it, Help Us Help You Guys. So the first thing we can do, let's talk about water a little bit. So a dripping fixture, so if your fixture just drips, you can waste or use up to 3 gallons a day, which is a total of 1,095 gallons a year. So it's pretty important to take care of those leaks. If you have a hole in your pipe somewhere that's leaking, and here's my little demonstrator, it's the size of the lead in the pencil. That's a 1/16 of an inch. With 60 pounds of pressure, you can put down over a 3-month period down your drains 74,000 gallons in 3 months. So it's pretty important to fix your leaks. So I'll jump to the bigger end, which is the eraser size, which is about 1/4 of an inch. So over a 3-month period, if you have a leak and it's running, you'll use 1,181,500 gallons. So I would say that's how we are helping you. So fix any leaks that you have. Don't let your water be leaking. Even that little drip on your faucet, your toilet, can add up over time. So now let's talk about the sewer side, which is one of my favorite sides, believe it or not. So the biggest thing is the issue, and if you've ever gone online, you've seen it online. We have what to flush and what not to flush. So the flushable wipes that everybody has, that some people are using, well, your car keys are also flushable, so please don't flush the wipes down, or any type of garbage. So across the United States alone, just because of these rags, we'll call them rags, and we'll get to see a little picture of that later on. Annually in the United States, it's costing $1 billion a year, all wastewater treatment plants, because of these flushable wipes. In New York City alone, in the last 5 years, they've spent $18 million because of these wipes. Great Barrington, Mass., right up the street, does $150,000 a year annually because of those wipes. In Maryland, because of them, has seen a spike in a 35% jump in pipes being broken. So please don't flush any garbage down. So what weighs 330 tons? I'm glad you asked me that question, folks. So a Boeing 747 weighs 330 tons, and 66 elephants weigh 333 tons. In 2018, London discovered what was called a fatberg, which was made up of wipes, diapers, and other household products being flushed down the toilet. It weighed 330 tons and was over a half a mile long. It took them over a month to get it out. It cost $1.4 million to do it, and it is on display in London at a museum, a piece about that big. So that's how you can help us help you guys here to keep your costs down, take care of your water leaks, don't flush garbage down the toilet. That's very important. So we'll move on to the proposed sewer system of the sewer rates. Bruce, we're already up, so you can jump over to the next slide when you're ready. So there's basically the sewer system that everybody has. You can see the homes. So out of your homes, you flush the toilet. It goes down to what's called a lateral, which will go to the main line. And depending on where you are as far as elevation goes, it's either going to be a direct gravity to the plant or there's going to be pumping stations. Now in the system, there's manholes, and that gives us access to the lines so that they can be maintained. You'll also see up here in the back corner, there's a little guy up there cleaning out, jetting out the sewer line. We actually have the tool to do it, we just don't have the manpower. And that's part of the problem with the sewer system. I believe it's never actually been totally cameraed, so we don't really know what's there. So as it works its way down, it works into the treatment plant, and that's when the real process begins. Next slide, please, Bruce. So as you can see, Winston has 2,850 customers between Winston and Barkhamsted. If you folks didn't know, we recently just got the Barkhamsted Mallory Brook Plaza up into the sewer system, and plan is eventually to get water down there. And I know Barkhamsted is talking about doing a housing development for affordable housing behind the plaza. So they want water and sewer. Before I get too deep too, I also have to back up a little and take a deep breath, the water system is not only for the drinking, it's also fire protection for the town. So the water up there is just absolutely important to us. The collection system, most of it was fixed. You jumped on me, Bruce, because of the 55 flood. So some of it's been taken care of, and some of it's been pretty old. And then Torrington itself, as far as connections go, they have 17,556 connections. Norfolk only has 378, and New Hartford has 326.
Can I just point out that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime anybody wants to jump in, please.
Of the 2,850 customers, 2,549, almost 90%, are metered customers using 5/8 inch or 3/4 inch meters. We have another 139 customers that are larger commercial users that have 1 to 4 inch meters. And then we have 162 customers that are what we call fixture customers. They don't have a meter, but they are billed on usage based on the number of fixtures that they have in their house.
Correct. And then whenever you're ready, move on to the treatment plant. And there's the treatment plant. It's located at 470 North Main Street, built in 1954, upgraded in 1989. In 1972, for you old hippies, it was actually the Clean Water Act, so thank you very much for your thoughts on conservation when Richard Nixon was president. So the law was passed, so all towns had to actually build a treatment plant to treat the wastewater. So the sewage treatment, basically, there is the preliminary treatment, which is the beginning. It's called the headworks, where it first comes into the plant. There's bar screens in there and racks to catch up some of these rags. There's primary treatment, which is basically just sedimentation and flotation. There is solids handling, which is an anaerobic digester. Also which will produce some methane gas, and that part, which is also sludge handling, is also called a belt filter press, which where they actually will squeeze the sludge, squeeze the water out of it. Next is secondary treatment. That's after it's already been through primary. The heavy sludge has been taken out of it and then shipped down for the second part of it. And there's also at certain parts of the time is disinfection. The state requires us and all treatment plants to disinfect certain times of the year because of the E. coli bacteria. Next frame, Bruce, when you're ready. So this is a picture of the manual bar screen, and that's what it looks like after they've raked it. So it's not really just liquid that comes in, that's what comes in. So that's garbage. That will create havoc on the rest of the treatment plant, and it can cause thousands of dollars worth of damage. And yes, and Alex, go ahead.
So the problem here is that the guys will rake the screen
Yes.
before they leave at 3:30. So by 4:30, the rags have built up, the flow is built up in the channel, and it's just pushing the rags over the top, and they're getting into the system everywhere.
Right, which you don't want to do because that takes up valuable real estate. Because now instead of a tank that might hold 120,000 gallons, now it only might hold 110,000 gallons, which totally changed the way the whole process works. Next slide, Bruce. So here's just a picture of the liquid that comes in, where it says I, that's influent, and that's Alex's excellent job of the effluent going back out. So you can see there's a big difference, what comes into the plant and what goes out of it. Obviously, the influent comes in, and then the effluent gets discharged into the Still River. While we're at this picture, that all treatment plants are under what's called the NIPDES permit, which is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. So we actually have to follow the DEP regulations. They oversee the plant, and everybody has to report to the EPA. Alex and I both do monthly reports to EPA every single month. So that's monitored that way. So some of the stuff we have no control over. Next slide. There's the picture of the treatment plant as everyone's driving by. I think we should name the moose after Alex's daughter, Mr. Mayor, Ingrid. So since it was at the sewer plant, so yes. So
That's
I
right,
think
it was a female.
it was a female, so it should be named after Alex's.
Absolutely.
And I'll have my donation. I'll bring it down soon. So the next slide. So as you can see, there's 40 miles of gravity sewer lines. Norfolk only has 9.5 miles of sewer line. There's 8 miles of force main. That means it's under pressure. So when you flush the toilet, especially around Highland Lake, it's under a pressurized system like your water is. There's 910 manholes, and I got a feeling there's a little bit more than that probably people don't know about. There's 9 pumping stations. So that's a pumping station, like the plant's here and your house is here, gets flushed to the pumping station. From there, the pumps kick on and then push it up so it can be fed. And there's 310 household grinder pumps, which are around Highland Lake. Next slide, Bruce. Alex, you can take this one.
Okay, so when I did the permit renewal, I had to do 3 years of annual flows at the plant. And as you can see, we're roughly 1.45 million. And I contacted Jeff up at the water filtration plant. He's on the average putting out 860,000 gallons of drinking water. So plus or minus some evaporative effects and people that have wells that are discharging into the sewer, we're roughly experiencing about 600,000 gallons of inflow and infiltration into the system, which, I mean, that's a really high number. We're looking at probably 45% of total flow being essentially ground and rainwater getting into the system. So that puts a huge load on the plant, because essentially the plants operate based on time, detention time in tanks. So naturally, if you have a higher flow going to a fixed volume tank, it's not going to spend as much time in that tank for treatment. So
Right.
it's a pretty big issue. These multi-inch rain events are becoming more frequent over the last 10 years in my experience at the plant. So
Yep. So everything is based off the flow that comes into the plant. So the plant is rated for 3.5 million gallons a day. So you don't think that's that bad that much really comes in, but it's actually costing money to treat that clean water, because it still has to go through the process. It still has to be treated. Still chemicals have to be added to it here and there. So that's a little bit big expense. So the I&I, the inflow and the infiltration, that's coming in through the pipes that are so old. So if you have on a 6-inch, I think they're about 3 feet, a 6-inch clay tile. So every 3 feet is a joint. So it's the clay. So what happens over time, they shift. So as they shift, water can get into that sewer line, creating those high flows. Norfolk we're doing that rehab up there because that plant's only rated for 350,000 gallons a day. I've seen it spike to 2 million gallons a day in a little 350,000 gallon tank. So we're actually under a state order to fix that I&I, because you're supposed to have no more than 90% of the design flow. Once you reach that 90% for a total of 6 months, you actually have to start planning on rebuilding the plant. So that'll also be help as time goes on. We might do an I&I study, not only on the collection system to see what's leaking, taking in water, and what's not. So Bruce, you can go to the next slide when you're ready. So here's some pumping stations that are in good condition. Number 6 pump at Perch Rock Trail. Looks like it was done in 2006. I was not on the board then. So, and then we just did one at the East Wakefield Boulevard Pump Station number 8. Some of that work we actually did in-house. So thanks to Jim and Marty and the crew, that saved a lot of money doing it. Some of it we had to outsource because you do need electricians and people to run that. The next ones are in fair condition, which is number 3 at White Street, the number 7 pump at Perch Rock Trail, and then the number 9 at 124 Colebrook River Road. And you can see the dates. When was the last time these pumps actually were new? Next.
Bill, if I can touch on one
Yes,
that's
please
a little confusing probably for people. 2006 pump station number 7 is listed in fair condition. The reason, and number 6 is listed in good condition. Well, pump station number 7 is just it's a small pump station. It serves 5 homes, I believe. And the reason we list it in fair condition is because it's a manhole, a brick manhole, and that needs some rehabilitation. That's the least of our worries. Pump station number 7 in fair condition. So that, I just want to clear up any confusion. They're both the same dates.
Absolutely.
The pump is from 2006, so the pump itself is in good shape.
Yeah, and then also, not only does water get in through the pipes, it can actually get in through the manholes. I've seen it pour into manholes. And not only through the sides, through the brickwork, actually through the top, especially on the roads, running down the road. Next slide, please, Bruce. So here's what some of our plans are. We're looking at doing pump station number 1 and 2 with the ARPA money that's been appropriated to us. According to the paper, we actually have it. We do not have that money yet. It is appropriated to us, so thank you, Board of Selectmen, for that. About $175,000 each pumping station. And hopefully, once we get all our T's crossed and our I's dotted here, because with the ARPA money, you have to follow strict rules and stuff like that. We'll be able to do that. And then I think with some of the other money, once we receive it, we're going to be doing pump stations 4 and 5, because those are pretty old too, so, which are older than Alex. So, and then Bruce, this is up to you. We're on the financial side.
Right, so over the last couple of years, the commission has asked the finance department to provide some data and recommendations about resolving what has been a chronic deficit that has occurred in the sewer fund. This table shows you the operating results for the sewer fund over the last 6 fiscal years, and these numbers all come out of the annual audit that is performed on the water, sewer fund, and the general fund for the town. Just a little bit of explanation here. The top line of revenues in 2016, $1,498,000. In 2017, the commission authorized or approved a small rate increase, which include a capital recovery fee and a fee and for usage. I think it was 4%. And so that was to resolve the kind of deficit that was seen in 2016, where our cash expenses were $1,082,000, with depreciation being $640,000, and so we had operating deficit of $224,000. In 2017, that rate increase decreased the deficit substantially, but we didn't see the growth in revenues over the last 4 years that we thought we would see. And you can see that the revenues are pretty well stuck at around $1.7 million. And so cash expenses with inflation have been increasing, and our depreciation burden, which is a non-cash expense, but it is a It's a cost that is required to be recognized by generally accepted accounting principles and represents the wear and tear of equipment and infrastructure that will eventually be replaced. So it has to be accounted for. And so over the last 4 years especially, we've seen deficits in excess of $200,000. And as Alex came on board as the sanitation plant operator, I say wastewater treatment plant operator, and as Marty got more into the collection side of the sanitation system, we became aware of needs to actually replace some of this infrastructure and equipment. And so, as I said, the commission has asked us to quantify and develop some recommendations for a possible rate increase to resolve these continuing deficits, which over a long period of time are unsustainable because you're just not generating enough revenue to replace the infrastructure and equipment, and ultimately the system will break down, hopefully not catastrophically. So that's the historical side of it. There are some upgrades based on both Marty's recommendation and Alex's recommendation and Jim Rollins, our Director of Public Works, to make some upgrades to the sewer system. Marty, you want to talk about the collection, and perhaps Alex about the wastewater treatment plant?
Sure. So, pump stations that are in poor condition, you know, we know what's going on with those pump stations. For instance, the two that are scheduled to be replaced with the ARPA money, simply the parts are not available anymore. The pumps, there's no plug-and-play pump that will go in that hole. We've tried to have a couple of them actually rebuilt, and a couple of different companies refused to rewind the motors or do anything with the motors. They're done. They've reached the end of their useful life cycle. In order to rehabilitate these things, it would be extensive plumbing. We would have to bypass. It's one of them's 24 feet deep in the ground, the other's 20 feet. We're getting into confined space permits. We're trying to get away from that. So it's time for them to be upgraded. You know, we can physically see that. The two other ones that need to be replaced, Whiting Street and Moore Avenue, same condition, but I'll tell you, and you know, some people might think, well, what the heck did they do before? Why did it go so long? Well, they did a great job at keeping them, and we're going to keep them going for a while, as long as we can. Simple thing is, if you know anything about these things, there's things called solenoid Johnson valves. There's nobody around that even knows how to work on them anymore. You know, so these things, it's going to be done. You know, they're at their end of the useful life.
Sure.
We're going to limp them along as long as we can. You know, but that's it. The big thing with rehabilitating manholes, we've never had time, they've never had the manpower to physically go around, open every single manhole in town, jet the lines, clear the lines, make an assessment of the manhole so that we know what condition they're in. What we've done is we're doing an asset management program where actually we want to know what our assets are. You know, for a long time it's, you know, as long as it's not coming out of the ground, it's okay. We're in good shape. Well, that's not the case. You know, we need to peel back and get a look in there. So that's what we're going to do. And with our asset management program, it's a software that we have called Setaru that we've put into play. So actually, we're going to have the guys going out, hopefully starting this year, popping every manhole, taking physical pictures. It gets downloaded into our software, and we can rate each manhole. Does it need work now? Is it okay? Does it need work in a year? You know, so that's where we're going with that. The deeper dive into that for the I&I, there's a couple of different things that we're gonna do. We have to get a company in. We have to get it priced out. It's gonna be a big deep dive. We'll do a smoke test where they're actually gonna, you know, they'll fill the manholes with smoke. And what that will reveal is if any leader drains, house drains, for instance, a lot of these old houses, you know, their leader drains went directly into the sewer, right? Because it was all one system back then when a lot of these were built. And then would go right to the river. So a lot of those never got
never got taken out of the sewer. So a lot of the water that Alex is treating is coming from gutters. I'm working under the assumption because of when we see a big rain event, he goes off the charts down there at the plant. I bet you there's a couple of storm water catch basins that are tied directly into the sewer.
Right.
Right,
So back in, sorry, Marty,
Sure.
back in the old day, there's a saying, dilution was a solution to pollution back in the old day. So the more water you had, it was more diluted. So with this extra, you know,
Sure.
this is really just taking its toll on the whole system here.
So that's it. So the INI will reveal exactly what we have out there. And then we have to formulate a plan. How do we attack it? Where do we attack first? Where do we go after? And then we can put a dollar figure on it, you know? So that's
Right.
it's a big deal. And,
Like Richard's
you know, it's a
talking
matter of being, and we have to be proactive. You know, we've been very reactive over the years, except for, I can say on the pump stations, the maintenance has been outstanding. You know, my predecessors they did a great job keeping those things up and running and taking care of them. Simply just not enough time, manpower. When I got here, there were 3 guys in the department. You know, 3 guys cannot run a water system and a sewer system and effectively be proactive. You know, you can just be reactive. So basically, somebody calls and says, hey, there's sewage coming out of a manhole on Wentmore Ave. We go clear the line, clean the truck up, put the truck away, and go work on the water system, or go work on whatever emergency comes up.
Right, and when that happens, that they actually call that a bypass, and a certain amount of gallonage, when it hits the road or comes out, it's considered a hazardous material, so you actually have to mitigate it. You're supposed to notify the DEP within 2 hours, a total report, or within 2 days. So it's a big deal if you have raw sewage dumping on the ground. And according to state law, once that happens, we're obligated to fix it no matter where that sewer line is. So if there's a sewer line that runs through the middle of your yard and it explodes dumping raw sewage, we're obligated to fix it. We don't have to ask you permission, we just have to fix it. And it'll go back to the way it was, but that's just the way the law works, so.
So that's basically it on the collection side.
Alex, you're up.
All right, to expound on the inflow, there have been several multi-rain events where I've gone to the chart at the start of the event, multi-inch rain events, where, you know, we're talking an inch per hour, 2 inch per hour, and I've seen the flow double within 30 minutes. So that's a huge problem. So that being said, the way our plant's designed is essentially water comes in, receives primary treatment, then goes back to a large wet well, and I have 4 main wastewater pumps that move the water through the plant. Now, because they're in their 33rd years of operation, I've lost about 30% of capacity, whereas they were designed to pump 3.8 million. They're pumping about 2.6 each. So these peak flow events are becoming problematic. So the problem is if I can't reach that peak flow number, the primaries are going to flood, and there's a weir in the corner, and we're going to be putting partially treated primary into the river. And then then it's a whole thing with
So then I'll chuck you under the bus on that one. If Alex knowingly lets that go in the river without reporting it, and he gets caught, it's a $25,000 fine to Alex personally, not anybody else in this room, to Alex, and up to 3 years in jail. So they're not messing around, folks. Go ahead, Alex, sorry.
So, yeah, where was I going with that? So, yeah, so these,
With your pumps and your peak flow.
these rain events actually keep me up at night, believe it or not. And as far as the control systems for those pumps, it was a funny story. They're literally 70s era technology. And I ended up calling a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy. And this guy from Rhode Island comes out, he was 84 years old, and he came out and we took the whole thing apart, but that was like, he's the only guy that knows how to operate these or fix these controls. So they are so antiquated. They look like, the interior of the cabinets look like a 1930s telephone switch operator with all the relays. It's unbelievable. Anyway, the other big thing aside from that is the rag issues, as that picture showed. You know, the rags are falling right over the manually raked bar screen. and they're getting everywhere, and unfortunately, we just had to repair 2 submersible pumps that have been continually, the rags, believe it or not, these wipes are actually partially charged, so even if you ground them up, they find each other further along in the system. And they create these big balls, and they wrap around all of our submersible pumps, and we just had to spend, I don't know how many thousand to rebuild one of them, and the other one was a total replacement, just because, you know, how many times can the motor amp out before it finally goes? So those are the 2 big issues at the wastewater plant that need to be addressed.
All set, Bruce, you're up again.
So, part of the request by the commission was to make whatever sewer rate increases a proposal. And to understand what is being proposed, I'd just like to review how the sewer rates are, what they are made up of. First of all, first line there, all sewer rates, all sewer customers are billed quarterly on February 1st, May 1st, August 1st, and November 1st for, generally for what has happened in the prior calendar quarter. For instance, the February 1st billing covers October, November, and December activity. Each bill includes a base rate, and this base rate varies based on whether or not you have a meter or whether you have fixtures. If you have one of the smaller meters, your base rate is $50 per quarter. If you have a fixture bill, $68 per quarter. If you are a large meter customer, you're paying $92.50 per quarter for a base rate. Every customer also has a capital recovery fee of $10 per quarter, and that was a part of the 2017 sewer rate increase. Now, for those customers on meters, and I think I showed you before that that represents almost 94% of the customers have a meter. You're currently paying a quarterly meter usage fee of 3.61 cents per cubic foot of measured intake water. That's based on your water meter for water coming into the house. And this is also for customers who are on wells and are metered customers. This is also based on their water meter of what's coming out of their well into the house. A reminder that 1 cubic foot represents about 7.5 gallons. So we'll provide you with cost per gallon a little bit later. For those customers that are fixture customers, they're also paying a $12 per fixture per quarter fee in their quarterly bill. So a customer that just has a sink and a toilet and a shower in their house, 3 fixtures. So they'd be paying $36 per fixture. So that's how the rates are, the bills are established now. The proposed sewer rate increase that the commission is, the purpose of this hearing is to hear from customers on this, involves increases in the quarterly base rates, an increase in the quarterly meter usage fee, an increase in the quarterly fixture fee, and establishing a low-pressure grinder pump maintenance fee for all customers with a sewer system-owned low-pressure grinder pump. And these fees are explained up there. I think they're also in the public notice and in the FAQ document that we distributed, but I'll just go over those. For those customers that have a $50 per quarter base rate, these are metered customers, and this comprises 94% of, 89% of the customers in the system. This rate is proposed to increase 100% over a 5-year period, meaning that the current rate of $50 would go to $60 per quarter in year 1, then $70 per quarter in year 2, continuing until year 5 when it would be $100 per quarter. Following the same pattern, the fixture fee customers would, starting from $68, would go to $81.60 in year one, $95.20 per quarter in year two, eventually ending at $136 per quarter in year five. For the larger metered customers, $92.50 per quarter would increase, again, 20% each year, ending in year five at $185 per quarter. The meter usage fee would apply to all meter sizes, and it's currently 3.6 cents per cubic foot. It would increase to by 0.064 cents per cubic foot each year over the next 5 years, and would be, at the end of that, a total 9% increase of 3.93 cents per cubic foot. Again, 1 cubic foot equals about 7.5 gallons. The fixture fee would increase from $12 per fixture to $24 per fixture, and that increase would go into effect in year one. It would not change. It would remain that way, for the next 5 years and then beyond, if there were no further increases. The low pressure grinder pump maintenance fee for sewer-owned grinder pumps, and these are primarily the ones around the Highland Lake Sewer District. There's some other customers in town that also have sewer system-owned low-pressure grinder pumps. They would be required to pay an additional $25 per quarter, and that would go into effect in year one. All of these new rates are proposed to go into effect on April 1st, which is just next week. But because you don't get billed right away for these, for the usage for the next 3 months, it will be reflected in the billings that become due on August 1st of this year. So I want to show you some graphs of what the impact would be on a typical customer, quarterly and annually. And so this graph shows the proposed rate increase for a quarterly 5/8 inch metered billing. This would also apply to a 3/4 inch. If you have a 3/4 inch meter, this would also be the same over the next 5 years, and this is based on quarterly usage in cubic feet. So these are quarterly bills. So currently, the blue bars represent someone who is a low-use user in terms of number of gallons that are that are read on the water meter. They're currently paying about $96 a quarter. And so factoring all the various rates, increases in the various rates, or components of the rates, that quarterly bill would go to $107 in year one, $117 in year two, $128, let me see if I can get the pointer over here, $128 in, whoops, I want to go back, sorry. Go back.
So also, like Bruce is just moving that around, just want to let everybody know that all 5 of your water and sewer commissioners are on water and sewer, except for George over there. He doesn't have sewer, but I just gave him some forms here tonight, so we're going to try to get his area on too. Also, out of the 4 employees at the plant, 2 of them have water and sewer, which is Alex here to my right. And then out of the total 11 employees that works for the water and sewer, 6 of them are on the system. But as far as the maintenance and the work, it's supposed to be, it's kind of supposed to be a 50-50 split. Only 1/3 of the time of the guys are actually working on the sewer system itself, so. Jim wanted me to say that, so.
Okay, so just continuing, here we are at $128 in year 3. It goes to $139 in year 4. These are quarterly bills. And then in year 5, it would be $149 per quarter. The tan bars represent a user that's a moderate user of water, that they're using a 1,504 cubic feet per quarter on average. And you can see how that moves from $114 currently up about $12 each year per quarter, and then tops out at $169. The heavy users that use about 2,000 cubic feet per quarter, they start out at 132, and then they're moving up to 145 in year 1 per quarter, 155 per quarter in year 2, 166 per quarter in year 3, 177 per quarter in year 4, and then $189 per quarter in year 5. So that's how the rate increase would impact users. For most of the users in the district, usually it'd be about 90+% of the users in the district. The next chart shows you the proposed rate increase as the metered cost per gallon over the next 5 years. Again, these colors kind of correspond to the prior one. They're not exactly the same colors, but you see blue, tan, and green correspond to blue, gray, and green. And your cost per gallon right now for a low user is a 1.3 cents per gallon to process the sewage that comes out of the house or building. So in year 1, that would increase to 1.4 cents per gallon, 1.6 cents per gallon in year 2, 1.7 cents per gallon in year 3, 1.8 cents per gallon in year 4, and 2 cents per gallon in year 5. And you can see again the increases per gallon. Actually, the percentage increase is a little bit lower because you're processing per gallon, because you're processing more gallons through that quarterly bill when you're a higher user. So a moderate user is 1 cent per gallon going up to 1.5 cents per gallon. A high user is paying a little bit less than a cent per gallon right now, and it would go up to 1.3 cents per gallon in year 5. So gives a little bit of context on a per gallon basis. So the next slide shows how these rates compare with our neighboring systems. The first bar is Winchester right now, 2,850 customers, and a user that is on a metered bill and uses 2,000 cubic feet per quarter, which is what we call a high user, higher use, is paying $530 for the year. The rate increase would propose that this increases in 2026 to $755 per year. Now, in both cases, that's greater than what Torrington users are paying. Torrington is able to spread all of their costs over 17,000 plus customers. And that's how they're able to have their rates so low. And this would be common in a very large municipal sewage system. In contrast, what Bill is familiar with, the Norfolk system, they only have 378 customers. Their average bill is $1,236 per year. And in New Hartford, with 328 customers, those customers are paying on average $1,253 per year for their sewage treatment services. So some information on comparisons. The last slide I want to talk to is what we expect this proposed rate increase, if it's approved, how it will impact the sewer fund financial results. We expect that the revenues would increase fairly substantially and would be in the $1.9 million range this year. Actually won't have much impact this fiscal year because the rates are not going into effect until fiscal #23, in which case we would end up with about probably somewhere around $2 million in revenues, increasing every year, maybe $150,000 up to a little over 2.5 million in 2027. Our cash expenses will be impacted by inflation, but also, as was indicated, part of the purpose of this is to be able to do preventive maintenance on the system, especially the collection system. And so that means adding some staff. And so some of these cash expenses will involve new personnel coming on. And so expenses are projected to be up and around the $2 million range in fiscal '23. And our depreciation is it will stay in this range. It's projected to stay in this range. You can see that the deficit that we are experiencing will be reduced substantially. And as long as the sewer fund can maintain a close to break even a modest deficit, that's enough to keep the sewer system operating and revitalizing the equipment and infrastructure so that it would not fail, and provide the services that, the system is designed to provide to, the customers.
Great. So I guess the last thing some of the things I have to say is Torrington is rebuilding their treatment plant right now. They're giving it a new name. It's called the Water Recovery and Resource Facility. We really don't like to call them sewage treatment plants anymore. We're really stepping up to the times. And that's about $72 million just to rebuild that plant. They're gonna be doing a phosphorus removal. Right now, Alex more than I do, is nitrogen, which comes from your ammonia. That's removal, which is also based off your flow. So we're not sure about that. So the forefathers, when they designed the plant, even though it's big, sort of bigger than what we need, that's a good thing that they did that for everybody. So the last thing I really have to say is basically, don't throw garbage down your toilets. Just stick to the 3 Ps, and I'll leave it at that. So John, I'll turn it back over to John.
Thank you. We'll open for public input. At this time, I've got 2 emails that came into Town Hall. I'd read out. First one is from Janice Young of 241 Halbert Avenue. She opposes this increase at this time. We are being hit in every direction, and for you to implement an increase is beyond thinkable. I will be reaching out to my neighbors. Thank you, Janice Young. The other email came into from Bill Lamian from Swell Car Wash. First, as a business person, I appreciate the commissioners' need to be able to have the funds needed to meet their requirements. And on a personal note, I have nothing but the highest regards for the city employees I have dealt with that oversee this facility. Second, for our business at Swell's Car Wash, the cost of sewer presents us with a unique challenge. More specifically, water and sewer are critical to our operation and represent one of our top 5 expenses. Thus, the cost increase for the sewer fees will likely result in our having to raise our prices, which are loath to do. This is especially important because our primary car wash competitors are in Torrington, where they benefit from much lower fees for sewer and water. Being able to compete with Torrington car washes is important since most people in Winsted go there to do other shopping. While I suspect the impact of our business won't persuade the commission to not raise these fees, I feel it is important for the commission to understand the impact the increased fees will have on local business. I do appreciate that the increase is going to be phased in over 5 years. And finally, I have 2 specific requests. One, is there a way there could be an adjusted meter usage fee when the volumes reach different levels? This would be beneficial to not only us, but other businesses that rely on large amounts of water. 2, is there a way that some types of usage fee reduction or credit could be provided to businesses like ours that have spent substantial money to install and maintain settling tanks that prevent solids and oils from entering the town's general sewer system? I realize the water still needs to be treated, but as noted, we remove the solids and oils and have our tank regularly pumped out by a private service. Thank you for your consideration.
So John, I can actually help you with that too a little bit. Because it is a car wash, he's regulated by DEP. That's nothing really to do with us, that he has to have an oil-water separator. That's the new law. And same with restaurants, class 3s and 4s. You have to have grease traps in them to catch that grease. Because this oil, if it ever reaches the treatment plant, is disastrous for the treatment plant itself. So they're the ones that actually set those regulations. We're just there to enforce it. So unfortunately, that's sort of the way it is.
At this time, if anybody in the public would like to speak, just come up to the microphone and state your name.
Mr. Chairman, could you just ask for the name and address before they speak?
Please state your name and address.
I won't be shy, I'll kick it off for you all. Candy Perez, 605 West Wakefield Boulevard, in my capacity as a homeowner. Just want to talk about the Highland Lake grinder pumps for a little bit. I understand why, I talked to some of you. I understand why you're going to institute the rate there, because way back when they were put in, I don't think there was a plan ever put in to replace them, because we don't have to pay to replace them. So I imagine that's where you're stuck on the Highland Lake stuff, is that you have to replace grinder pumps because they went in 1994, and here they are, although I still say mine would still been running, and it wasn't my fault.
Were you flushing garbage down, Candy?
Yes, I was. No, I want it back, because we know that the problem was in the road, not at my house. But I think with this, and along with what you were talking about, people flushing these,
The flushable wipes.
the
We like
flushable
to
wipes
call them
and
rags.
things that are not supposed to be done. Those of us that are careful understand about reasonable fees going forward to replace things. But I don't think I want to pay fees to replace the grinder pumps for people that aren't taking care of them. So what is the policy that you have come up with to go along with these rate increases, to be able to communicate with people, mostly at the lake where the grinder pumps are? I'm sure aren't there a couple other places where there might be?
There are
Yep.
more.
But what policy do you or will you put in place to let people know that you're only gonna be replacing the grinder pumps because of wear and tear, not because of abuse by these things that aren't supposed to go down the drain? Because I don't think that everybody should pay for those. I think we, like I said, will pay for wear and tear, but the other policy I think would be important. And also for the rest of the system, the grease traps, if people aren't doing the grease traps and they're supposed to, are there penalties for them that go back into the system for repairs? Okay, thanks. Well, I also think it's important to note that you got 2 letters, and there are, I think, 4 people here that aren't town officials.
You want me to speak on that?
Sure, because
Sure.
you're the one that
So
handles
basically,
most of the pumps.
So, thanks, Andy. In the regulations, it clearly states that people will be held responsible, the homeowners will be held responsible for damage done to the pump station or the pump, by the homeowners doing. Where we've never actually educated the public. When they first went in 1994, everybody got this beautiful packet. This is what you put in, this is what you don't put in. What percent? 80% of those houses have been sold since then, probably. The new homeowners, and what I would like to do is I would like to get with the assessors, or I have to know when a house sells so we can educate the new homeowner on what they have. Can't really blame them if they don't know what they have. They're not being told what to flush down the toilet. They're not being told how to use these pump systems. So once we get the call, here we are again, reactive, right? Not proactive, we're reactive. So once I get the alarms in and people say, geez, I don't even know I had an alarm pump. Really, I have a pump? What's this gonna cost me? And then, of course, they're elated when I say, well, it's gonna cost you nothing because we own the pumps, So a lot of people see that and they're like, oh, we can dump anything we want down there. We don't, it doesn't cost us for the pump. So yeah, so we're getting some teeth. We have it in place. We just really haven't enforced it. We don't find a lot of people really abusing it. Now with our new software that I touched on earlier, we're actually documenting every time we're at your house. So Willard, if we're there, you know, 3 times in a year, it's gonna cost you some bucks, you know, we're coming back. We're gonna find out.
Don't flush
You know,
garbage.
we can actually take, so what we can do.
We've been there once in 30 years.
Good, nice job. And we'll do that, that's on us, that's on us. These things are really scheduled to last, you know, pretty much 8 to 10 years. You know, and we have some that have been out there for 30 years, you know, 25 years. Great pump system. You guys have been around there a lot longer than I've been around there, but you can speak to what it's done to the lake. I mean, this has improved the lake immensely. I think it's a good deal. The problem here with Highland Lake Pump System is we own a lot of it. The town owns a lot of it. We own the pump, right? We own the sewer lateral from the pump chamber all the way out to the road, right? Downtown on the gravity system, we own simply from the curb line to the main. We don't own that stretch in your yard. So basically, if your sewer lateral ruptures in your yard down over the ditch on the back west side, you know, Marty and his crew are responsible for fixing that. That's gonna be an expensive fix. You know, it's not on the homeowner. The maintenance around it, I'm sure you've seen us if you live up around the lake. We're out there with our vac truck, finding out that there are these pressure relief valves. There's like 20 of them around the lake, the air relief valves that have never been maintained. Because we weren't, the guys weren't educated enough on it. And we know these things have to be replaced. They have to be redone. The valving's shot. There's work to be done, you know? It's an expensive system to maintain. I personally, I've been on the lake plenty of times. It's worth it. That lake's beautiful. You know, it's a treasure, and it's been a lot to do with the low pressure system. You know,
Right,
fortunately,
and
guys had the commission had the mindset to do that. So.
And it was before my time, and I know Steve's over there, I believe, when he was on the board, Steve Hale. The only reason why that we own those pumps is because that was part of the requirement when USDA came in and did that whole system. They said that you had to maintain the pumps, you had to do all of it. So now that's come to an end. So now what do we do? So this was our only way at this point.
If I could comment also, I'd like to actually piggyback off something you said, because it's a learning opportunity for me. Speaking to the FOG, the fats, oils, and greases.
Yep.
Is that fall under the purview of TAHD? Aren't they supposed to do, in regards to compliance with, I believe,
They're-
the area health should be doing the permitting and compliance?
They do the permitting and the compliance, but we're supposed to do the inspections to make sure that they're pumping those out and cleaning those out. I know we're
supposed to physically
we
visit?
are the ones that are supposed to physically go out there and look at those, and because we're short-staffed, I'm sure those have been a little bit on the neglected side too. Especially after this pandemic, how are you gonna go into a restaurant and say, you have to clean your grease trap, if you don't, I'm gonna call the Torrington Area Health District, and we're gonna have big issues. So I've had to do the same thing up in Norfolk, you know, you just can't. How much are you gonna burden people as it
So
is?
that could be getting through the cracks, as far as we know.
Absolutely
We
could
don't
be,
know.
yes, absolutely. Anyone else?
Any other comments or questions from the public?
Willard Platt, West Wakefield Boulevard. I've heard mention about the grinder pumps, the $25 fee, or, yeah, the $25 fee. Sometimes it's mentioned as the Highland Lake Sewer District, sometimes it's mentioned as all the grinder pumps. So could you clarify that, whether it is all the grinder pumps that are out there, or just the Highland Lake Sewer District?
Some of the grinder pumps are personally owned by the homeowner, so they're
Right.
not privy to our $25 fee.
Right.
So you can't blanketly say
Does
all
the
the
town
grinder-
have more grinder pumps than just in the Highland Lake Sewer District?
Yes.
Absolutely, and as a matter of fact, I have a grinder pump at my house, and
So
it
you'll be
is,
subject to the $25 fee?
no, I won't, because it wasn't part of the Highland Lake project, so that grinder pump is on me. And that's
You own
third,
yours?
I own mine, and that's
Okay, but the ones
36
that-
years old.
So the town hasn't installed any more grinder pumps
No.
other than in the Highland Lake District?
That's correct.
Okay, because it's, even tonight, it's been kind of
Sure.
mishmash which way it was.
Yeah, this fee would only apply to those pumps that are owned by the sewer system,
Okay,
not to the ones that are privately owned.
all right.
Can I ask, what does the municipality pay for a grinder pump, as opposed to maybe
That was my next question.
the homeowner? There's gotta be two different prices, but it can't be, neither of them could be pleasant, I would imagine.
Well, we're getting them, so we bought them in, I've gotten permission, and we've done some bid waivers through you guys, if I can make a deal, we can make a deal. So I actually was able to get them for under 2,000 pieces. I was paying about $1,800 per pump, which was, I think on the open market, you're gonna pay $2,800, all of $2,800. And of course now, believe it or not, they've gone up.
Thanks, Marty.
But we're in pretty good shape, so we're trying, but we've been budgeting
Right.
to buy, what I'm trying to do is buy, so we still do have original pumps, which you'll like the name, they're Farrell pumps, they were made by this guy Farrell.
That's the one.
Yeah, he was a great, but we have 30-year-old pumps out there still, we rebuild them.
So a new, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
So a new pump, when you start running out of parts and some of them can't be repaired, the
Yeah.
new one costs close to 3,000 now, right?
Sure, yeah.
So then, I guess $100 is a good deal.
You wouldn't wanna personally buy them, yeah, especially maintain them, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
I wish they would do mine, but they're not gonna do it, so it's all on me.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, any other comments from the board at this time?
No?
Yes, absolutely, Alex.
Actually, I would like to extend an invitation to anybody that
Yes.
really wants to see what goes on down the wastewater plant. I think you'd be, I'm not saying it because I work there and I'm down there, but I think you'd be surprised at the breadth and the depth of what goes on down there. You know,
Absolutely, I concur with Alex, because it's mathematics, it's microbiology, it's mechanical, it's electrical, it's chemical, it's all of it. And just a little tidbit, wastewater, the wastewater field has the second highest workman comp claims in the country. So kudos to these guys. And the first one is coal mining. So there's a lot of really rough stuff down there. So, and it's pretty in-depth. Jim said don't get too technical, but it's very technical. You know, we have to do 135 credits. You have to operate a plant, a minimum class 3 plant for 2 years before you can even be a class 4 operator, which is a minimum of 5 years before you can even qualify. So this is all regulated by DEP again, those testings, and it's not, the Ed Norton days of the honeymooners, sewer workers is long gone, folks. The highly educated people that actually have to run. And in my opinion, and not because he's my friend and a fellow operator, I've seen a lot of operators in the state. I actually think we're lucky to have Alex Combs as our chief plant operator. I believe he's one of the best in the state of Connecticut, so.
Just something that we have talked about at our meetings. We're not talking water tonight, but the water rates compared to the processing is a lot simpler for water than it is for sewer. And yet
That is correct.
our sewer rates are much, much lower at this stage, correct?
Correct.
Correct, because Jeff knows, the operator up there knows what's in Crystal Lake, you know, as far as how it has to be treated. I mean, he's been there for 30-something years now. With wastewater, you don't never know what's gonna come down that pipe. Somebody could decide to dump the paint down, or gasoline can come down, or these fast oils and greases, or the garbage. So you don't know what's gonna come down at you, or how much is gonna come. You saw the comparison, almost 600,000 gallons more at the treatment plant. It's a lot tougher to be a wastewater treatment operator than people think. Like I said, Ed Norton days are long gone.
Can I just add that if you don't have time to go see Alex, which I think is probably a real treat if you can go see him, we do have a slideshow on the sewer system tab of the town website, and it's called This Winstead Wastewater Treatment Plan. There's about 28 slides there that show you, summarize the process of what happens at the treatment plant. And you can see some of the older equipment and some of the new things that have been in there, but you get it's very educational to understand how all the things that they have to do to treat this water so that it can be discharged into the Still River in accordance with DEEP regs.
You certainly learned a lot doing this work here.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
A newfound appreciation.
Yes, yeah. So this is the lead slide for that slideshow, and I'll just flip through a couple. Here's a little diagram of basically what you do, and then a picture of a pump station, septic transfer pumps. This station also collects sewage from all those septic tanks that have been pumped by private pumpers. They bring in and they discharge it here, and so Alex processes that stuff. But you'll see, again, rags. You'll see grit has to be removed. You've seen this fine bar screen already. Then there's a settling tank, and on and on. There's just a lot of
Right.
processes involved in order to get it, clean it out.
Question. Jack Ward, 78 Crown Street. Just because you raised that, the people who are dumping from septic systems, are we charging them more? Is there gonna be any increase? I didn't see any fee increase for that.
Well, we actually did increase that, I think not too long ago. And part of the ARPA money that we're gonna get, there's gonna be a septic receiving station. So right now, we don't have the capability of actually measuring what goes on those trucks. So, or that comes out of those trucks. They could come in and say, well, I just dumped 12,000 gallons, and they really could have just dumped 3,000 gallons. So that, once we get that with the second wave of that money, we'll have that station that will measure that flow that comes in, so there's no ands, ifs, or buts, how much they're dumping, and then it's charged per 100 gallons or
Yeah,
something?
so the current rate for septic haulers is $100 per 1,000 gallons dumped. But that being said, we don't have a meter. It's just going by sight glass. The operator runs out when the hauler comes in and they're looking at a sight glass. It's, cloudy, can barely see, the level of it, what's in the tank. So there's definitely some lost revenue there.
Yeah.
I think the short answer is, I want to say it was about 3 or 4 months ago, I believe we doubled that fee. And we also,
Yeah,
we're talking about
we increased it for sure.
putting a lot of money into better
Right.
regulations and more accurate
Right.
assessment of what they're bumping. So they're not getting a free ride. They got hit pretty good.
Yeah.
And
So-
I think it's appropriate. I think that,
I agree. So like that bar screen that we've looked at, Alex and I have actually taken a ride and looked at a bar screen, an automatic bar screen, and a septic receiving station. About 2 years ago, just to buy the bar screen was $250,000. That's just to buy it. That's not even to install it. So we're probably looking at closer to almost 400 to 450,000 just to get that thing in place. To save these guys from going over 6, 7 times a day to rake these up. It's the same with the septic receiving station. It's not cheap, but in the long run, it's gonna be a lot better process and easier to run.
Any other questions, comments?
Was the moose there today?
I don't know, but it definitely should be Ingrid.
She was there. People taking pictures today.
I saw one in Norfolk a couple of years ago too. He was walking around our sewer plant, and I actually have snapshots of it. I've seen every kind of animal at the sewer plant, except for the mountain lion that's not supposed to be in the state.
can I just offer one last thought?
Absolutely.
I just want everybody, people who are watching, I guess, at home,
Yes.
and people in the audience, nobody sitting up here on this commission took this task lightly.
Absolutely.
From a personal standpoint, I spent 25 years raising a family of 5 in the town of Avon. So I raised a family of 5 on a fireman's salary in the most expensive town, in the most expensive state, in the most expensive region. Long story short, I had to work 4 part-time jobs to live paycheck to paycheck. I do not take this task lightly. I do not take the responsibility of increasing the tax burden on anybody lightly, because I was a fireman by trade. So when I started here in the commission, quite frankly, this system scared the hell out of me. The fragility of this system, it really, first and foremost, I think it's amazing that we have not experienced something really catastrophic.
Yes.
And secondly, the fragility of the entire system, water included. I don't know how you guys sleep at night.
Well,
But
Alex
I
does
gotta
it.
tell
We
you, I
already
would
just
not want to be
admitted
these
that.
guys. But as a representative for you folks on this commission, the worst thing we could do is walk away from our obligation. And our obligation when we raise our hand and take this oath is to make sure that your basements don't get filled up with someone else's goobers. And that when you turn your tap water on, it's chlorinated, it's clean, it's safe, it's healthy. Nobody cares about that until your basement fills up with sewage. or the water comes out brown. Our goal, no brown in the tap or the basement.
Right.
But that comes with financial responsibilities, and at the end of the day, there was not enough money here. So nobody was negligent, there's no malfeasance, misfeasance, nothing, no $10 words, there's just not enough money. And at the end of the day, to make sure you have healthy water and a place for your Ubers to go, other than your basement or your neighbor's basement,
Yep.
we need to get money. We need to make this system better. Infrastructure is better for you. It's better for the community, it's better to attract business, and we're operating on a wing and a prayer right now. So we have no resource, we have no value in this asset until we can make sure that it's properly maintained, regulated, functioning. I don't think we have that yet.
No, I totally agree, and I said this once at the Board of Selectmen meeting, the water and the sewer is the lifeline to the town. Without that, there's not gonna be a middle of the town, because then what do?
There's just a
I mean,
tremendous amount of liability. But
As much as the 55 flood hurt, it was also a good thing, because everybody knows where that sewer was going on that side of the street.
Well, Bill, the other thing too is, and it was talked about the installation of that sewer line around the lake.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the huge percentage of our grand list is around that lake.
Yeah.
And if the lake goes, we get real serious trouble.
Right.
So the work that Marty and all the staff that you have and what's going on in town, I tell you, you're really doing a hell of a nice job. And
Yes.
it's our job to look at the hard numbers. We've been fortunate to have Bruce with us all these years that I've been on this, and we've got legitimate evaluation of our finances and a legitimate projection of what our needs are in order to keep this thing functioning the way it should be functioning, and to ensure that it's going to go on for many, many more years.
And one other point I'd like to make, I mean, there's no blame to be laid, if you ask me. I mean, our predecessors, Alex and myself included, everybody knew what happened here about 12 years ago, you know. Things were on their way back. There was in 1986, Steve can speak to this, but there was an I&I study. It was happening. Things were moving. There was a lot of water put in. The Crystal Lake plant was put in 97. You know, things were happening. And not by anybody's means, but these guys, our predecessors were told, you pump the brakes. There was no money. There was no money to be spent. They didn't know if they were gonna be able to cut paychecks to the guys, you know? There was no money. It was fleeced completely. We're on our way back, and with that, almost 10, 11 years of putting nothing into it, and just, some of the stuff was recognized, don't get me wrong, some of it was recognized, but they had to turn a blind eye to it. There was nothing they could do, other than just try to maintain what was out there, try to keep it alive as long as they could. They did a great job, you know, they kept it alive as long as they could, so. I just wanna make sure there's no blame specifically placed upon Jim McCarthy and Richie Kemp, you know, they were assets, they were wonderful,
Absolutely.
wonderful people, you know. Mr. Chairman, it's all you.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting. Oh,
May I just make one point? We have some literature up here which
Yes.
shares information on how if homeowners have a difficulty making their utility payments, including on the water bills or the sewer bills, there are opportunities here to get assistance from the state for help with their, with paying those bills. There are some income requirements, but that's explained in the literature. That's in the document that's on this corner of the table. So if any of you are interested in that, or if anybody at home would like information on that, you can get these applications from Katie Vale, the Social Services Coordinator here in Town Hall.
So,
thank you, Bruce.
need a motion? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Joe already did it.
Joe already did? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
last year.